Good morning. Hi. Sorry. Apologies if that sounds very loud. Thank you all for being here. I'm really excited about our rich discussion that we're going to have now. Just as brief introductions, I'm Piumi Mitchell. I lead Deloitte's social impact partnerships for the UK firm. It's essentially how we collaborate with voluntary, community and social enterprise partners. Some of our partners are here in the audience as well, I've just spotted. Thanks for being here. So we look at kind of people engagement, driving commercial outcomes and system change. Really delighted to hear for today in terms of the different panellists that we have. I'll just pass to each of them to introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Bennett. I am a young consultant for Participation People, a student at the University of Bath, and the founder of Amplify and Young People UK. I've got a few other roles, but I think that's it.
She's also just got back from Mexico, but didn't want to share that to the panel. Hello, everybody. My name is Antonia. I'm the chief exec and founder of Participation People, and we are an organisation set up to better and more meaningfully connect children, young people and families with decision makers and policy shapers.
Hello everyone, my name's Stephanie Burras and I'm the founder and CEO of an organisation called Ahead Partnership. We're a social enterprise and we work with employers to help young people to develop the skills and careers, knowledge and aspirations that they'll need to be successful in their future lives.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Angela Halliday. I'm the Director of Social Impact for Sodexo. So we're a provider of workplace experiences, but also deliver prisons, for example. So do come and speak to us. Stand 10, and I've got the lovely Emily there. She'll put her hands up, so please do come and speak to us. But I'm also this year, I think I'm now 6 days in, as the co-chair for the National Social Value Task Force.
Good morning, everybody. My name's James Westhead. I'm an Executive Director of Better Society Capital, which is the UK's leading social impact investor. So we use our own capital to invest into positive social impact in the UK, but our wider mission is to grow the amount of money that is mobilised to tackle social problems. So I think of us as a bit like plumbers trying to build the pipes so that money can flow to where it is most needed.
Wonderful. Thank you all for being here. So the question, mission critical. We've heard Guy Battle and others this morning talking to the existential crisis that we are in. We don't need to talk about that any further specifically. What we're going to talk about in this session is thinking about specifically the 1 million young people that find themselves unemployed. That's 1 million stories of untapped potential, of ambitions which have not been realised, and of opportunities that are potentially slipping away. This discussion is going to focus upon how we can really drive better outcomes for those young people through collaboration, thinking about those initiatives, programmes, opportunities that exist. So really we want to kind of go from that perspective of we're on a journey, but there is a sense of possibilities here. And I'm delighted that all our panellists here, I'm sure, will have much to say. As we kick off, what we're going to do here is hear from Lauren. And I really want our discussion to be grounded in what is it like to be a young person right now. So, Lauren, it would be wonderful to hear from you, and we're really fortunate that you're here with us today, to hear from you in terms of what you see as the biggest challenges and opportunities that face young people in your generation, and what is it you wish that adults better understood?
Perfect, thank you. A very big question. And I think there's multiple sides to it, but I think the challenge is the fear in young people at the moment. And it is put in us by older generations, potentially even my dad, who has told me that I need to fix climate change if I think it's an issue, or violence against women if I think it's an issue. He's like, it's for the younger generations. I'm like, Dad, I ain't got any money. I have not got any money. I haven't got any time to fix it, so please help me. And there are so many issues around the world that we see every single day on our feeds and on the news and on the BBC News app that pops up on our phone every single day, which is scaring us. And we are students in schools, universities, that have very little power, I would say, in this world. So I think firstly it's the fear that actually something big's happening that we can't really tap into and control. But I think the opportunities is that there is an awesome world out there and we can see it every single day. My life gets better every single day. And I think the The opportunities in this world are growing. Tech is advancing. Opportunities for women, I'm a huge female advocate, as you can probably tell. Opportunities for women are becoming incredible, and I think it's trying to find the gap between that fear and actually how we can ensure that young people feel empowered to take that fear into action so that we can continue building a better world. My personal experience is like the kind of fragmented youth opportunities. For example, I am someone who's been fortunate enough to have teachers, mentors, businesses invest in me in various different ways through either money and finance, time. When I was 15, I tried to build an app that I told everyone would save the world. And I had a company invest 20 hours in me and try and build the app for me. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but it was that time to go into the office and see what the real world looked like. I became a Duke of Edinburgh Youth Ambassador. My teacher at school, my DOV leader, he emailed me specifically and said, Lauren, you'd be epic at this. And for me, this is perfect because now I'm going on to build amazing initiatives which are helping so many other people find their path into success, into confidence, into everything. For example, Amplify is an event at university that I started to give women confidence to put themselves forward, because what do you mean we're telling ourselves that we're not attractive enough, or we don't deserve that job, or we don't deserve that pay, or we don't deserve a healthy relationship? Like, that's stupid. So I've started this initiative, and the only reason I could start that initiative is because someone believed in me. And I think my upset here, though, is that it was me. When I built that app, it was one company believing in me, and then it was one teacher at school believing in me, and there was 1,199 other children at the school. And there was probably other young people at that school that needed more support than I did. I've got a beautiful family that love me, raised me, and have given me the most beautiful childhood, and I probably wasn't the one in need of that care and that love. And I think it's really important that the collaboration that we discuss in this room and today is that we actually look out for the young people that go home and watch TV every single night because their parents don't invest time and love into them, or potentially can't invest time and love into them to take them to a hockey club or football club, or to pick them up from an after-school club. And companies can help. We had Cyber Club in school, which I don't think I even actually liked computer science, but it was fun because we had a company come in, and we used to sit there until 6 o'clock. School finished at 3:10, and we sat there until 6 o'clock. We had 6 professionals come in from a local company and teach us how to code and how to build apps. And that time was so amazing. And whether we wanted to learn how to code or be computer scientists or international speakers or whatever, it was the time that they invested into us, and it was valuable. It was saying, we've got skills that we can give to you. It wasn't saying, we've got 15 professionals on a Friday, how can we help your charity? No, it was actually relevant to the school and to the needs of to our community. And I think that's what companies need to realize, that they can actually use the skills you have. You don't have to make up some new initiative. If you have tech skills, if you have mentors and professionals that can come in and speak to young people, use the skills, but actually listen to the people that you're trying to help, because actually they can end up, the time that you invest in them can then end up helping other people in the future. So yeah, thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Lauren. You absolutely did. You absolutely did. Absolutely. Antonia, passing to you now. Participating People, your organisation, is all about youth agency and ensuring young people's voices shape decisions. Just building on from Lauren's piece that she just shared there, those insights, what do you see as those critical steps we need to make in how we engage with young people and setting them up for success, the future workforce? Love to hear your views.
Piumi, thank you. And I have no idea how to follow Lauren, which is one of the reasons why at Participation People we collaborate every single day with the experts, who are young people. They are your brand strategists. They are your brand advocates. They are your early career talent. They are your customers. They are your service users. And they're also not a homogenous group. Lauren pointed to it so beautifully in her opening around some of the digital spaces that young people are already at. There are also 1.5 million families that are not digitally enabled and don't have that access, so don't have that knowledge, can't be curious, can't be courageous, and cannot understand what the bigger wide world looks and feels like beyond their place-based communities and their direct families. So to give you some stats, as I'm sure you're all procurement bods, right? You like your data, your stats. Some of you are smiling, some of you are shaking your head, which is absolutely fine. But Lauren, for example, at the age of 20, she fits into the Gen Z population cohort. Her generation is seeing about 6,000 digital ads a day. So thinking about that content, that cut through, the digital media and examples that they're seeing is all generated by the algorithms and the clicks that Lauren clicks on and into. So what does her digital community look like? Does it represent the communities that we are all here to serve and work alongside? I would argue probably not. And what is our responsibility within that? To give young people just like Lauren and some of the other young people that she was talking about who might have needed that extra teacher support, that talent spot in their school, that family member just to say, hey, how you doing? And how you doing really? Because when you empower young people and you give them agency, magic happens. They become your early career talent. They become your brand strategists, your brand advocates. They become the best customers and the best service users to help you get better, be gooder. Yes, it's a new word. And I am a daughter of 2 English teachers, by the way. I had to check. But there's something really powerful about investing in youth agency. And I know from a social value perspective, that's about thinking about apprentices and how many apprentices are in the team. It's thinking about your environmental impact, but actually consider, have you asked young people the question of what social value and value add they would like to see within their communities? And that's what Participation People does, is we better connect young people with decision makers and policy shapers to make the magic shine.
Thank you, Antonia. Really interesting insights there. And I think just building upon that, if we then think about the next part of that, which is the building pathways, and we touched on it around co-designing solutions, talked about it this morning. Stephanie, it would be great to hear from you in terms of from a head partnerships perspective, given your focus around career skills building for young people, particularly those that are more disadvantaged and furthest from the labour market. How you think organisations can effectively partner with education system, local communities to really kind of address the skills gaps?
Right, thank you very much for that. So a little bit of context maybe to start with about the work that we do. So I mentioned we work with employers, and it is around skills and careers. It's about, in particular, unlocking up opportunity and creating an even playing field, particularly for young people who face barriers, underrepresentation. So that's our focus. And it's also about addressing some of the economic challenges we have around the shifting workplace, labour demands, skills gaps, and looking at how we can tie all of that up as a win-win for everybody. And we do that by structuring programmes with employers that are social value rooted. They're not all rooted in public procurement or connected to that. A lot of businesses are doing this because it is part of their purpose. And when we do ask them why they're doing it, there's a whole host of drivers. And some of them, are more sort of financially or economically motivated. But the biggest response we always get is it's the right thing to do. And that might mean different things to different people. If you asked a finance director the answer to that question, you'd get one answer. If you asked an employee to business why they value being able to be part of programmes that are supporting young people in their neighbourhood, you'd get a very different answer, but they all think it's the right thing to do. So what sort of things do we do? Well, I think, first of all, the thing to say is we don't do off-the-shelf programmes. So we place ourselves at the heart of collaborative partnerships that are designed around specific objectives or needs or issues or opportunities. A lot of it's quite innovative, entrepreneurial sometimes. We're ambitious in terms of what we do with our partners, and we very much are advocating early intervention. So we're here talking about the nearly 1 million young people who are not in employment, education or training. And I was on a webinar earlier this week for 90 minutes where it was being discussed, and never once did anyone talk about what happens to young people during their educational journey before they get to the age of 16 and then become NEET. And so that is where our work is positioned. It's positioned as early as primary school and at every stage through the educational journey, involving employers in every aspect of that. And Lauren gave us some great examples of how she'd benefited from that herself. So it was great to hear those. Long-term programs with lots of repeat engagement throughout young people's educational journey are the hallmarks of what we have seen be really successful. We do work nationally and we work across all sorts of sectors, and we also build partnerships not just between employers and schools, but sometimes with third sector partners, with local authorities and combined authorities as well, depending on what the opportunity is. And I thought I'd maybe give you just a flavour of some of the types of partnerships that we've seen work really well. I'm going to start off with individual employer partnerships, where we have an employer in a locality that really wants to make a long-term and impactful commitment to helping, supporting young people in their local area. They'll maybe have an interest in bringing some of those young people into their workforce, and there'll be opportunities there to link the work through to their early talent schemes. And we've seen lots of very successful examples of this, which take maybe a 5-6 year approach, where companies have built a program out from primary level all the way up through to secondary, post-16, even offering now degree apprenticeships to young people in the locality, and are already seeing that flow of talent coming through, and that's working really, really well. What they're not doing is a bit of this and a bit of that here and there. It's really committed, it's focused, it's co-designed with the school. The young people are all involved in feeding back and optimising those models. The next kind of partnership, which I think has worked really well, and where I think there is a huge amount of potential, is around place. And these sorts of partnerships we've built around major schemes and projects. So an example would have been something we did within the Towns deal, which was a capital investment programme a couple of years back. We actually created a parallel programme of engagement for young people in that town in all of the projects that were being proposed and brought forward for development with that capital investment. There was no engagement for young people in the Towns Fund deal at all until we created one. And we got young people really involved and engaged and understanding actually what was this money going to do in their town and how was it going to alter the opportunity for them. And got them involved in very practical projects alongside professionals who are involved in delivering the Town Deal scheme itself. So that was a really good example. Another one, for those of you who know Birmingham, there's a big new business area called Paradise. Has anybody been to Paradise here in Birmingham? Great big new sort of mixed-use development with housing, lots of new offices and so on. We've created a scheme with the developer who's brought that forward, linking to 5 partner schools in the immediate surrounding neighbourhoods, all of which suffer from different levels of challenge, to connect young people through a whole series of year-round activities in Year 8, in Year 9, in Year 10, in Year 11, and to bring them into the offices of all of those employers, doing all sorts of exciting projects to understand what is available for them and how they can connect to those opportunities. So that's another example. Sector-based partnerships where you have businesses who have common issues around skills issues, maybe Girls into Tech would be a really good example into the digital sphere, where we actually bring businesses in a sector who may be competitors with one another actually together to work on solutions and pool their resources and actually be really clear and focused on the activity that they're doing and the outcomes that they want to achieve. And then I think the final sort of partnership program is really around specific groups. So where we have young people, for instance, care leavers, or we have, as an example of a project we're just kicking off at the moment with a multi-academy trust, a pre-NEET programme. So the school already knows who the young people are in year 8 who are likely to become NEET. So going right back to where we started this session. If we know who they are, surely, if we have the right kind of support and programmes around them, we can do something to alter their opportunity and their course and pathway. So we are just kicking off that very exciting new pilot programme. It's going to be a 4-year programme. It's going to follow those young people from year 8 into year 9, into year 10 and 11 to their transition point into post-16. And the young people themselves are going to be involved in designing that programme. It's going to be an opt-in model. So it's not going to be something that they get asked and forced to do. It's something that's we're going to make it so good that they all want to be involved. They're going to make it their own. And they're going to look forward to coming in and being part of that programme. And it's going to open up all sorts of avenues to learn all sorts of things about employment, careers, the skills they'll need, and to give them hope and optimism for the future.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you. Stephanie talked in detail there around collaboration, and clearly that is a really core theme here. It would be great, Angela, to hear from your perspectives leading Sodexo's social impact strategy and approach. From an organisation's perspective, the types of pathway programmes and initiatives that you lead upon and how you understand collaboration to work effectively in the system.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So we have heard in the last 3 days, almost 2.5 days in the conference, and we keep using the phrase around radical collaboration, and everyone keeps nodding, yeah. And then people are whispering, what is that? Yeah, true. So what I'm not going to do is, believe it or not, give you the exam answer, yeah. I'm going to ask you to put it into practice, because at Sodexo, that's what we do all day, every day. And we're the 18th, 19th largest employer in the world. And people think, who? They haven't heard of us. Because we tend to be behind the scenes, doing great work, keeping hospitals running, prisons running, big corporate offices, schools, universities. So we're really well placed sectorally to be at the forefront of communities. And communities comprise of people. Businesses comprise of people. And there are lots of young people in the workplace, yeah, even though we're talking about the ones that are being left behind at the moment. But the young people are already there. And sometimes employers are missing the opportunity to capitalise and leverage the assets they've already got in the business to help shape and inform how they get more of those little golden nuggets, which is the future generation. So ways in which we've done this in Sodexo, we've run a series of what we call purpose labs. And it's about having labs with students or young people in the community. And we've also ran one in one of our prisons, actually, to try and understand from a cross-section of socioeconomic groups what has led you to either be at university, understand their history, what is your career ambitions, or what was your journey that's led you to being in prison. And then there's another cohort of students that maybe just never made it through second year uni, third year uni. And these are individuals that are getting left behind because they've maybe been picked up at the beginning of their journey. They'll get picked up at the end of the journey, but many of them disappear in between. So we've been trying to capture those that are almost falling through the cracks. Not a great phrase, I appreciate, but and we're doing that through Purpose Labs, hearing firsthand from young people, what do you want? You tell us. We don't actually have all the answers. We might be a huge company. You know, I always say that, in fact, James and I were talking about size of teams, and I'm going, I'm really proud. I've got 30,000 people in my team, believe it or not. It's pretty cool, because we expect the business just to do really good business in a really good way, but they can only do that in an informed way. So we create an ecosystem, and instead of, if it's okay, I'm probably not going to answer the questions exactly as you've asked it, because I could sit here and talk about how we engage with schools, universities, community education programmes. I'm sure most of you are aware of it. I would rather bring it to life. So through partnerships that we've got, one example is the 10,000 Black Intern programme that hopefully many of you, if not all of you, have heard. So we're really proud to support and work in partnership with them. So today, for example, there was a young lady that went through an internship with Sodexo. She reached out, she said, "Oh, I love this social value thing. Don't know anything about it. Can you help me?" Of course you can. So she's here today at the conference, got her a ticket, and we're helping make connections for her. Now, that's going to be career defining, hopefully, for her. And again, if you want to meet her, come to stand 10, because I want to introduce her to as many social value professionals as possible. She wants to get on the career ladder. Many of us fell into social value by accident, let's be honest. Yeah, because someone asked me about what's the professional qualifications and what was your journey? And you think, there is none. You actually get here by accident. This movement is about making it more deliberate moving forward. And the only way we can make this deliberate moving forward is by capturing young people today for tomorrow. So the 10,000 Black Intern is one example of where we're changing people's life through that relationship. We're the host, we're the creator of opportunities. We're not the brains behind the model, because we need that niche organisation, that specialist organisation, to enable and empower us to do social good. Another example is something as simple as coffee. Obviously, we're a food services business primarily, but we work in partnership with a coffee organisation that helps people who have been experiencing homelessness, and a lot of them are young people. And a great example is a young lad, he was 17, on the streets. Change Please is the name of the company that we work with. Picked up the young person, gave him wraparound of support, asked Sodexo to create a job opportunity. So we provided a work placement, which I want to come back to very briefly. Gave him a work placement. He was so good and he was so loved by the customers. He was given the job. So over a 2-year period, we supported 60 people who were experiencing homelessness into jobs with Sodexo, of which over 40% of them were under the age of 24. That's a startling amount of people who are on the streets, especially kids. Delighted that we then placed them with a pharmaceutical company, not to be named, but what I would say is he's now been there 5 years and he's now regarded as one of the senior management team at the pharmaceutical company, and he's like 24. I mean, it's pretty cool. That was only made possible. I'd love to take all the credit for that, but we can't. That was done absolutely through partnership. And the work placement part for me is really critical, and that's where, as a business, please build up partnerships with your local schools. Most kids only get a work placement because dad knows somebody or they can accommodate a work placement, so they don't get beyond their own little ecosystem. Businesses are not stepping up in the way in which they need to create exposure for young people to the business world, whatever that looks like. Young people, and Lauren, you touched on it as well, you used the word fear. Young people are a bit fearsome of what businesses look like. They think, I could never wear a suit. I could never do X, Y, and Z. And they think that almost everyone in a suit has got 3 heads. Yeah, we probably have, and we're just hiding it well. But the reality is we used to be young people. So my call to action in terms of partnerships is partner with your local schools, create work placements so that young people can truly experience in an immersive way what the world of business has to offer them, and then make sure that we engage them, nurture them, and develop them from there. That's the power of partnerships.
Thank you, Angela. So I really love the way you talked about that focus on talent pipeline, but really adapting to the new generation of Laurens and others in terms of how do we really entice, motivate, drive the right behaviours, and kind of identify those individuals from early on who may be at risk of not being as close to the labour market. James, if I come to you next, you talked about the need and the kind of opportunity around mobilising capital and scaling impact. With that in mind, it would be great to hear from you in terms of what are those innovative funding models, financial models that exist around social impacting, investing and others in order to scale effective interventions. And also, how do we then create those sense of possibilities?
Thank you. And I'm going to talk about investment and innovative investment. In fact, Kamal Ezel, who's the founder of Change Please, the coffee company that you mentioned, is one of the incredible. I mean, that is an amazing organisation, changing lives, but also great coffee. And we've invested in him and actually 4,500 social enterprises and charities across the UK. So I'll talk a little bit about social investment and how it's changing really fast. I'll also make a confession, which I'll come to. But I actually wanted to start with a word that Lauren used, which really resonated with me. And she talked about what was it that was holding young people back, and the word was fear. You know, the two biggest motivations for humans, I think, are fear and hope. Hope is the biggest antidote to fear. And you've used the word sense of possibility. And I've got a confession to make, which is that for most of my career, I was probably growing fear and reducing hope because I was a journalist. And if you're a journalist, I was a reporter for the BBC, I was a health correspondent, I was an education correspondent, I was a social affairs correspondent for approximately 20 years. And if you're a journalist, it's a bit like the opposite of being a consultant, like Deloitte. You come along after something has been done and tell everybody how they've got it wrong and it hasn't worked. So I did that for 20 years, and then that shrunk my sense of possibility. My sense of possibility was very small. I really, I was working as an education correspondent, and I was actually disappointed to be the education correspondent because I thought, actually, nothing really changes in education, and change takes generations. And then I joined, frustrated with that lack of possibility, I joined a small education charity called Teach First. And it was a small charity with a very big ambition, which was to end educational inequality. Absolutely ridiculous, I thought, as the BBC's education correspondent. How could that be possible? That's crazy. But somehow I got sucked into it. And 10 years, after working there for 10 years, London, which when I joined was the worst place in the country to grow up as a child from a disadvantaged background, when I left, not due to me, but London had become the best place in the country to grow up if you were from a disadvantaged background. And that is an incredible change when you consider that no capital city in the developed world has that dynamic where it's better to grow up in the capital city than in the rest of the country. Almost universally, capital cities perform worse. So what that did was massively expand my sense of possibility and my hope for the future. What that showed me is it is possible to change complex, difficult situations and social problems. And Lauren's right, we're faced by a whole selection of them at the moment. In almost every sphere of public life, it feels a bit overwhelming, to be honest. So where do you find the hope in that? And that's why I got involved in my current employer, organisation called Better Society Capital. The clue's in the name. How do you use capital to build a better society? And if you look at it, look at the money situation, big picture, there only are three types of money in the world, as my chief investment officer pointed out to me when I joined. So I thought, really? I'm not a financial expert. That seems awfully simplistic. But he said, yeah, there are only three types. There's a taxpayer pound, a philanthropic pound, and a private pound. Now, the first two have not really grown proportionately to GDP since the war. Public spending is still between 40 and 45% of GDP. Hasn't really changed. It's just sort of moved around. It started off as mostly defense, and now it's mostly health. The total amount we spend of taxpayer pound hasn't changed that much. Philanthropic pound hasn't really increased. In fact, the latest statistics show philanthropy has decreased in the UK. What's happened with the private pound? That has massively increased over the last 50 years. The pile of private pounds has gone like this. So if we're going to solve the social problems that are growing like this, literally the only way to do it is if we divert some of those private pounds to tackling public problems. So that's what we're trying to do. And I see it as a bit like the Teach First example. Instead of diverting human capital, in other words, these amazing leaders coming out of universities and persuading them to instead spend their time tackling educational inequality, what we're trying to do is divert some of the investment that people make to tackling social problems, because it is actually the best investment you can make. And investing in young people is investing in the future, quite literally. So the kind of initiatives like Change Please, the initiatives like, we're invested in a whole range, but many of them are about early intervention, preventing problems for young people. If you can identify, as the example that you gave, young people at year 8 that are going to be at risk of being not in employment and education and training, and you can intervene then, the massive saving to the public purse. It's an absolute no-brainer. So what we do is we kind of build financial mechanisms and tools that enable, in that example, I suppose, the state to capitalize that. And we, the investors, can put up the money up front for social enterprises and charities to deliver the services. We just need to find ways for that money to be paid back over time, which is what we're doing. Now, I could go on. I could talk forever. I'm going to shut up. But that just gives you a flavour of what we're trying to do, and also I hope shows, just to give you one data point before I shut up. When we started, the total amount that was invested in this work in the UK was 800 million. Today, it's 12 billion. So it's the fastest growing sector in investment. So that gives me some hope for the future. It is possible to drive change. It can happen as long as we get organised.
Thank you, James. Angela, go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to jump in. Given BBC backgrounds, BBC is really good for fact checks. Yeah, on your BBC Act, you always get a fact check. So can I make a fact check? Yeah. He said, amazing leaders coming out of university. Okay. The minority of young people go to university. Some of the greatest leaders that I've came across, have the pleasure of working with, and that are still out there looking for an opportunity, are young carers, who we have to dig really deep into the communities to find, care leavers. Both of these groups have had to navigate through the journey that they've came and developed leadership skills that I'm pretty sure I wish I had at that age. And then also in prisons. A lot of young people in prisons have had to navigate a journey that's helped them develop leadership skills. So I just wanted to do a wee fact check, James, so if that's all right.
Can I just say I welcome that. I'm totally agree with you, and I wasn't suggesting that they're only in universities.
I just couldn't help myself.
Of course, go ahead.
But then I ask, actually, how many businesses in the room are still investing in finding those hot graduates? And actually, if there's a really clear call to action, it's find your diamonds in the rough. Like, go out there, be visible, inspire and empower them, and suddenly you get Lauren, right? Who I'm still in awe of, by the way. But there's something really magic around where you're putting your pounds. And James touched on it around the private pound. But consider your recruitment pounds, your mentoring, coaching, CPD pounds. Are any of you in the room willing to be reverse mentored by a young person? They mentor you. They give you the real life skills of what it's like growing up today, which I kid you not is so different from when I was growing up a few years ago. And I don't know about you, but I would not want to grow up today. I'm really grateful that I'm 42, sat here and going, yeah, you know what, this is my career. But for my 14-year-old stepdaughter, Darcy, who can also tell you what I do for a living better than I can, by the way, her world is bleak. it's really bleak. So how do I be that smother? She calls me smother, stepmother. How can I be her smother to keep giving her that hope, reduce her fear, and give her exponential examples of other strong people in our sectors, plural, so that she can go out and be the engineer that she's told me she's going to be. It's not what she wants to be, she's going to be. And I'm so proud.
Thank you. James, could I ask another follow-up question, actually? There's a whole host of people in our audience today. If I am a social enterprise looking for investment and I want to be able to scale my programs, my initiatives, what are the couple of first next steps that you would suggest?
It can look it's a bit confusing, can seem confusing, complicated, daunting, lots of language. Where do you go? The best and quickest route is to Google Good Finance. So Good Finance is a website that we set up. It provides information, guidance, training, and also a sort of matching service. So you can just put in, I do health in Nottingham with young people, whatever the mix of things are. Who are the investors that are interested in that in my geography? So that's the best route to go, and it explains how it all works.
Amazing. Thank you. Very helpful. Okay. So we've heard a range of discussion points here. A couple of ones that are sitting with me are the power of user-centric design and what that opportunity can bring. You know, the importance of direct engagement, Antonia spoke about, and Lauren, and also financial investment, that could be a real catalyst for change that you can drive. What I'd like to do now is to invite some of our panellists to think about and sort of share with you their views around the role of technology, particularly AI. Just given that AI represents a huge threat to our early years talent in as much as an opportunity. So keen to kind of weave that into our discussions. So I'd invite whoever would like to pitch in.
Well, I don't mind going first on that one. Actually, it's a really interesting discussion, particularly as we were just talking about hope and fear. And I think nothing is encapsulated so much as this discussion around AI. And I would say maybe 12 months, 18 months ago, young people that we were working with on our projects were pretty enthusiastic, actually, pretty optimistic. I think that's now been tempered. There still is optimism, but there is also a real fear, and I think a lot of it is about scaremongering around AI. And the reality is it's moving very fast. We don't really know where it's going to end up. There are some trends already which are starting to reveal themselves, and in some cases those the impacts of those trends on roles, are on roles that traditionally have been done by younger people or have been stepping stone opportunities for young people as they've developed, started work and started to develop their career. And so there are concerns around that. But equally, there's a huge amount of opportunity around AI, and young people are more tech savvy than any other generation. And they are the ones who are going to be best able to leverage those opportunities for themselves and for wider society and for the benefit of all of us in the future. So what does this mean? There was a really interesting report came out from the King's Trust. I don't know if anybody's seen that earlier this month on the impact of AI. Their research has shown that, particularly in relation to the jobs that young people do, around 10% of those jobs are likely to disappear entirely. Those roles are likely to disappear entirely, and around 50% of them are going to be augmented, and that represents obviously a huge opportunity. If you then look at the areas in which the jobs are disappearing, they are in some quite specific areas. What we're seeing at the moment reflected in our own projects and the work that we're doing with our own employers, very much around IT, in financial services as well, and in professional services. And quite a lot of jobs going in retail, particularly those ones that young people might have done, for instance, as cashiers, working as cashiers, even as Saturday jobs, and holiday jobs. Those opportunities are disappearing, as technology is introduced at checkouts and all that sort of thing. So, but on the flip side, there are all sorts of careers where AI is expected to lead to huge advances. And so I think one of the big opportunities for us, and we really, really must do this, and I think employers have the best line of sight on this because they are the ones who are adopting the AI and where the workplace practices are changing and the roles are changing. We really need to be talking to young people about this far more and helping young people to develop the skills that they're going to need to be really effective with AI. And I say that's building, I think, on knowledge that they've already got. They're already experimenting with AI far more than older generations are. So I think that we need to be quite conscious about it, and we need to keep moving with the pace of change as well.
Thank you. Lauren, would love to hear your thoughts on this.
I've got a few, but I would say as young people, we don't all love AI. I personally am still a little bit scared of it, but I also think that I can see both sides of it. I think I want to start by saying that I looked at my student finance the other day, I'm £33,000 in debt, and I've been at university for 2 years. And during my accounting for managers course last year, the majority of the lectures, which God knows how much I'm paying for, if I didn't understand something, I'd turn to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is not the whole extent of AI. I'd turn to ChatGPT, ask it how I did it. It explained to me in a 10-step, most perfect explanation, and that is relatively free considering if you have the technology in the first place, which if you have a phone, you've got access to ChatGPT. And I am paying £33,000 already, which is only 2 years of my course, to access something which ChatGPT can pay for me. So I think what we first need to realise is actually it is going to massively decrease inequalities within education and access to resources, firstly. Personally, as a university student, I actually don't like it. I think it is a waste of my time, and I think there are so many other things that life has given me, and I think the whole education system needs a revamp, because the fact that I'm sat up here today is not due to university. Probably like 10% of university has given me here today. So I think we first need to look at the positives and the fact that it is massively reducing inequalities if people can access the information. But I think from an employer perspective, we need to actually recognise that as well and need to find different ways that technology is educating young people and recognise it. And rather than saying, well, have you done 4 years at university? Oh, well, no, then you haven't got the qualifications. Actually saying, what have you done proactively for yourself with the resource that you've got access to that shows that you are excited about learning and that you can come to our workforce and use the skills that are available to you, and come in with that kind of intention and drive to learn, even if you don't want to go and spend. I think I'm going to be in like 80 grand debt by the time I leave university, which is ridiculous. So I'm a bit scared about that, but we'll figure that later. But yeah, I think there's part of it which, yes, AI will take some jobs, probably quite a lot, but also for the last 100 years more. I don't know how long the Industrial Revolution has been, but that phase of life, we were scared then because machines took factory jobs, and I feel like we're just in another phase of that. And actually, potentially, it's quite exciting because we can say, wow, life may not look the same in 10 years, but isn't that exciting? Imagine the world looking the same in 10 years' time. Like, we can actually maybe lean into this and lean into the fear and the hope and the excitement. And yes, there's going to be hard parts, which there was 100 years ago and there was 50 years ago and 20 years ago. But I think the beauty of life is the challenge that kind of comes with it. So as long as we do it properly and not kill the Amazon rainforest with all the energy that it's consuming to actually run AI and all the other technology that we're constantly consuming, I think that we actually do have quite an exciting opportunity ahead of us.
Thank you. That was great. I'm going to move us on to questions, purely because I'd like the opportunity for others to contribute. I can't quite get this iPad to work right now, thank you. But in the meantime, invite from the audience here, before we go to online, any questions that are kind of coming to fruition in front of your mind that you'd like to ask?
Hi, I'm Jen Bourne from Solutions for the Planet. I know a couple of people on the panel. I guess it taps into what you just said, Lauren, which I think and a couple of other people have mentioned, what have you done proactively with the resources that you have available? I think for a lot of young people, understanding what resources are is a real challenge, right? Like we're taught, and society, like, I don't know, celebrity is what young people are exposed to, and that's, money is a resource. And if you don't have that, then, but actually understanding what the resources are that young people have is that first step. And education isn't necessarily doing that, and maybe home life isn't necessarily doing that. TV is certainly not doing that. So and once you've and also that point about hope and fear, and the fact that actually I think hope, I think gratitude, and I think changing problems into opportunities, they're all mindset related things, right? They're almost like traits that you need to practice, you need to develop in order to exercise that muscle in order to turn that on its head. And so I guess my question to the panel, it's very challenging. We work with 11 to 14-year-olds, and upwards, but that feels like that happens a lot earlier. Like when how do we actually start to help young people, or what ways of the panel experience of helping young people recognise themselves as a resource? Antonia, you talked about a diamond in the rough. Like, Lauren, you identified yourself not really as a diamond in the rough because you're not in the rough, right? You're a diamond, but you're not in the rough. And so how do we identify and help young people who are in that rough recognise themselves as, poppy seeds that are going to grow in challenging places?
I'm asking the audience, who's heard of the word snowflake? Oh. Okay, well, I can tell you. Who thinks Gen Z are entitled? Or are told that Gen Z are entitled? Thank you. I mean, a few of you. Okay, radical honesty in the audience. It's such a great question, because for me, it's the adult comfort blanket of blaming the next generation for the education systems and policies and processes that our generation, have put on them. And there's something around helping young people understand that adaptability, behavior, and skill is the gold ticket. 65% of Gen Alpha, so that's the 14 and below, the age group that you're working with, those jobs that they will be working in and when they join the workforce don't exist today. So what are the skills that we want to offer them and proffer them? What are the behaviors, the ethical, the talents, the being seen, being valued, being heard, where there are more diamonds and less rough? And that for me is the adaptability, removing the words of snowflake, really looking at institutional racism, understanding what trauma looks and feels like for every single young person through their lens. Once we really make the space to listen and create that adaptability pathway, that was tough. That for me, again, is actually, that's the legacy I want to leave to my own stepchildren and also the other wonderful young people that I have the absolute privilege of working with. Remove the titles of snowflakes, entitled, understand that asynchronous and DIY learning is ChatGPT, Perplexity. Oh, what was my other favourite one? Yes. Oh, well, and there's something really magical about where we're going and seeing it as an opportunity rather than a blame culture. Yeah.
I agree, and I do actually think very simply it's in the language that we use, and I think it has this kind of like ripple effect. And it's something that I'm learning and I'm trying to help others learn, specifically through Amplify. So Amplify I founded in memory of a friend who literally, you would speak to her and you would be like, oh my gosh, I can do anything I want to do. Like the confidence that you had after speaking to her. And she always used to say, and she was probably one of the first people that would fully said it to me with like heart and confidence, I'm proud of you, Lauren. And at that point, I was like in year 13, so I was 17, 18. And I hadn't achieved like the most amazing things. Okay, I was working hard, but for her just to say, you are confident, you are special, you are this, you are that, it's something that we should actually practice to ourselves and to other people around us. And I think there are so many young people and adults that we constantly talk negatively ourselves and talk negatively to other people, and we're more jealous of other people than proud of them. And I think it's a very easy thing that we can do. And if that's something that us as businesses that we can foster as a culture within our businesses, and then also use our resources, go into schools and mentor people and make sure that our mentors are telling them that they are amazing, they are smart, they are confident, they are proud, they have the skills to do X, Y, and Z. I think that's actually really powerful, and it costs nothing. It literally costs nothing to have positive language towards people. And I think the most impactful people, Antonia sat here, one of my mentors, have literally changed my mindset and how I approach things, and that's kind of a resource. You don't have to give me my resources, I've already got them, and I think part of it is figuring out is giving me the power to realise that. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you. I think we've got time for one other question. Oh, so many. This gentleman here.
Hi all, I'm Dwayne. Now, I wanted to turn my question directly towards the panel because we're striving for building up young people, getting them into great places. What we do know is that business is hard, requires a lot of resilience. The workforce is hard. Now, the question is, how do you impact their mentality around the resilience that's required to strive in the workforce, right? Because it's not just, we can be motivational and we can embrace and encourage their ambition. But the reality is when they get into it, the growth process, you have to be tenacious, you have to be overly ambitious, you have to be overly confident just to cross the barrier. And I'm talking about the workforce. Business is a whole different ballgame. So my question is, what challenges do you face when it comes to building these young people at various stages, right? Because, what's my next point? Because I think I forgot my next point. I was too into it. But yeah, let's start from there. Because yeah, it's probably gonna be 1 in 5 that you're gonna find someone that has that drive. So how do you kind of work with that? How do you grow that?
I wish I had, a kind of really sexy, smart answer to that, but I don't. Yep. So particularly within the workforce, so I think we'll start off by saying, in the spirit of openness, it's really difficult because businesses are facing a really challenging time economically, but also even just from a talent perspective to get people into the business. And when I say talent, I mean talent from all walks of life. So once they're in, even getting them in, people think, oh, it's great. This month we've recruited X, Y, and Z. And I go, okay, but it's actually what happens next. And businesses today, more than ever before, just don't have the resources to have all the wraparound support. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier, partnerships. So particularly where we're bringing in young people who have been less socially advantaged than others, let's say, working with agencies that are specialists, understand young people's history alongside us in the workplace, gives them that additional support to help see them through. Examples being in Edinburgh, we run a contract at the Royal Botanics, and we've got 12 ex-homeless young people, all under the age of 24, that are working in that contract alone. Now, you can imagine the challenges that presents, particularly for the operational managers, because they've got to hit profit lines, they've got to get the food on the table, they've got to keep the customers happy, yeah? Really, really difficult, and the HR person's based in Glasgow, yeah? So working with that agency for the wraparound support is making sure that we're uplifting these young people, but even when they start dipping, there's someone there to make sure that we keep lifting them back up, and in doing so, that improves the productivity, profitability, and happiness in the organisation. I wish we had an infrastructure that would make sure that every hand was held and every journey and every story was told. It's just not the reality. So that's why I think we've got to work harder at who we bring in as a partner to make sure that their success is our success.
Thank you, Angela. James, did you want to very briefly?
Just very briefly to add to that, I think that's 100% right, and I love that every hand is held. The only thing I'd add is we've got to start much earlier. We should not be getting to a situation where there are more than 1 million young people who are not in education and employment. This is, madness. We need to be intervening much earlier. It should start at school, even before school, and then it needs to be that kind of hand-holding should be all the way through a young person's life. And when they get to the place of employment, unfortunately, there are trends that are mitigating against that hand-holding. So, for example, Lauren is asking nothing personal, but you're asking ChatGPT rather than your colleague or your adult friend. And in the old days, the way people learnt was as apprentices. They would be attached to something. Now people are working from home in their bedrooms. They don't sit alongside. That's rubbish. Yeah, it's rubbish. So there's all sorts of trends which very unfortunately are mitigating against what actually needs to happen for young people. So we need to really consciously push back the other way.
I'm going to just wrap up the question piece, just in the interest of time. Oh, 1 minute, woman. Oops. We did have something that we wanted to do with you, which was to invite you to participate in a short Menti. The piece around our discussion was all around action. What's your individual action? What's your organisation action? So I'm just going to briefly pass to Antonia just to run us through this.
Participation people, all about continuous learning and improvement, right? And as a panel, we want to know how we've left you feeling. So join our Menti. We have 2 questions. If you can just hang out with us for 3 more minutes, with our apologies for running over by 2 minutes. Give us a little love heart when you're in. If you're struggling, please do ask one of my team. I have 2 other young people in the audience, by the way, who are learning the digital and marketing ropes. Give us a wave, Megan, at the back. And we've got Salma on the camera. Yeah. Okay, it looks like you're all in. So, streaming God, could you go to the next slide, please? Just give it an arrow or a space bar, usually. We hope. We pray. Move on. Oh. Slip. In fact, Megan can come and help. Megan, you know how to work this, right? Thanks. See, trust a young person. Brilliant. You just press the arrow, right-hand arrow, Megan. You can do it with the laptop that this is on, or I can come to the back. Oh, it was going to be beautiful, this. I'll tell you what, while we do that and while Megan sorts out the tech, we'd just love to know 3 words, shout them out pretty please, of how this panel session in particular has left you feeling. 3 words. Insightful, thank you, Dwayne. Hopeful, inspired. Any more? More questions. Curious? Any more? More time? We can do that. We're hanging around the whole day.
Come and find us afterwards.
And one learning moment. We would just love to know one learning moment. And participation people absolutely will be sharing some insight and some slides to you all. So do keep an eye. We'll tag the social value conference in it with some of our thoughts and some of our talking topics. But, oh, here we go. Yes. Okay. 2 more minutes. Thank you, streaming God. Got it. 3 words of how this session has left you feeling. Positive, energized, excited, inspired, grateful. Usually we get old up there. Hopeful, curious, grateful, interesting, brilliant. Keep them coming, folks. And if you have to go, please do. But we're just very grateful for the feedback. All feedback is brilliant. Massive thank you, Piumi, for such a great panel.
Thank you all for your participation, energy, enthusiasm, and thank you so much to my panellists here today. Brilliant. Thank you. I don't know what happened.